someday American heroes will be celebrated again. And when that happens, we'll remember those who deserted their colors when times got tough.
Recently, Laura Ingraham went on a rant on her show that was so thinly veiled, racism that was so thinly veiled that honestly, she made Tucker Carlson look like a good guy. And so, just pay close attention to some of the language that she uses here when she's referring to Black Lives Matter and what the left is allegedly doing to the country. Take a look.
Our nation is under attack. There's no other way to describe what's going on right now. Businesses are being burned down, historic markers defaced, law enforcement defamed, and people are being threatened with having their careers ruined and their lives turned upside down if they dare speak out.
So there's nothing the conservatives love more than the culture war. It allows them to ignore the fact that tens of millions of people are currently unemployed. It allows them to fearmonger about how the history of this country is under attack, that our entire culture is under attack, that our identities will be erased. It's the kind of fearmongering that you can typically hear on Fox News on any given night, especially on Laura Ingraham's show. But she goes after Republicans as well. Republicans like Steve Schmidt, Bill Kristol, and John Kasich, not for the reasons we would go after them, because they might be warmongers or terrible people. She goes after them because they happen to attack Trump. And so she had said during a recent episode, go to the websites of things like the American Enterprise Institute and the Cato Institute, even the Heritage Foundation. It pains me to say that. And you tell me if at this moment they seem like organizations that are really worried about the survival of free market capitalism and the Constitution at all, for that matter. And then finally, the thinly veiled racism. Final video.
A lot of very clever people who've gone to lots of fancy schools will someday be very sorry that when the time came for them to speak for America, they were nowhere to be found. Because we're going to beat the left, either now or in the near future. And someday, the riots will stop. Someday, law and order will really be restored. And someday, American heroes will be celebrated again. And when that happens, we'll remember those who deserted their colors when times got tough. We know who they are, and they know who they are. And we will never forget them.
So Cenk, what do you think about the rhetoric used in that segment? And by the way, just to be clear, when right-wingers like Laura Ingraham refer to law and order, they're specifically talking about the powerful being able to break the laws with impunity, whereas everyone else has to deal with this whole tough on crime culture that has imprisoned record numbers of people to the point where we imprison more people in the United States than any other country in the world. So what do you think about her rhetoric?
Yeah, I actually think it might get her fired. Not right now, but down the road. And I'll tell you why. Because she's going after Republican elites, and they're soon going to be back in charge again in the Republican Party. And so Donald Trump is this populist aberration, but still the people who run the Republican Party are the donor class, and they're wealthy. And the reason she listed a bunch of think tanks there, American Enterprise Institute is the neocon think tank, Heritage Foundation, she said even them, because they're the most storied and biggest right-wing think tank, and Cato Institute is libertarian. But they have one thing in common: they're all funded by very, very wealthy right-wing billionaires usually. Okay, and so those guys are the ones that give donations to all of the Republican politicians, and they control the Republican Party. For a little while, Donald Trump took over, and he also serves those guys, but in a little bit different way. And some of those guys are now split within the Republican donor class. And I think the ones that are gonna win are the ones with the money. And by the way, there's one other person in that class, or one family in that class. It's the Murdoch family. And so Laura Ingraham is, in a sense, biting the hand that feeds her. She's going too populist. So not in the racism. They've had the racism all along. The Murdochs have never minded all those people, right-wing billionaires giving money to those organizations, never minded that. That's not the issue at hand. But when she talks about all those people who went to good schools will be very sorry when we take over and when we do law and order, those are pretty scary threats. Saying, hey, if the populist wing wins, we're gonna come for you guys. And so some of those folks, well, let's just say that their family members have gone through that before, and that is not going to sit well. Or they know folks whose family members have gone through fascists taking over and telling people they're gonna be very sorry if they're among the elites. So that was as bad a screed as I have maybe ever seen on Fox News. And so then you get to finally to the racism about the colors. And you gotta remember what colors you are, as she said there, deserted their colors, I should say. Now, she's smart enough to have plausible deniability and go, oh, what? I'm saying it like the flag, like these colors don't run. I mean the flag, right? Well, wait a minute, you're not even defending the American flag within that segment. You're saying American heroes, referring to Confederate soldiers and generals who attacked America. So no, you're not saying that. It's obvious that she's doing a very thinly veiled reference to race, right? You deserted our side, the white side, the right side, the populist side, right? And also, by the way, the Christian side, not Judeo-Christian, Christian side, okay? And so that's super ugly. And she could do plausible deniability all day long. Anyone paying attention knows what she's saying. And right now it's ugly. And if the Trump wins, then her side's gonna win and she's gonna be right. And times are gonna get vicious. But I don't think he's gonna win. I think the Republican donors are gonna come back into power and they're not gonna like that kind of talk.
When you sign up for a spend and save account at aspiration.com/TYT, we will plant 10 trees. Let's save the planet together.